Now, there's if you've been watching football, as I have, on the weekends, I spend time watching college ball on Saturdays, and then maybe a Pro football team game. Can't talk properly on Sunday. Not always, but sometimes, especially the college football. I'm not a big fan of pro sports on any level, especially football. It's become too militarized, and it's a bunch of millionaires beating the shit out of each other on the gridiron, and it just, I don't know, it just kind of bugs me. But college ball, I still enjoy. What I've noticed, though, is a heavy repetition of these ads put out there by the Scum Bastards campaign, where he accuses Kamala Harris of providing sex change operations for people in prison. And you can hear Kamala Harris say it in her own words. And the orange bastard tapping into every man's utter, absolute screaming fear of another man touching their penis, which is what Trump loves to exploit when he talks about Arnold Palmer's penis. But Trump understands, because he suffers from the same thing. Oh, my God, what if it turns out that some man would make a move on me? What would I do? Oh, God. It is a common fear among heterosexual men. It really is. But now, these ads released by the Orange Vomit, especially in the battleground states, which is probably why I've seen so many of them here in Georgia, it goes after Kamala Harris for supporting taxpayer-funded transgender surgeries for prisoners and migrants. And it concludes with a slurring, ugly remark about gender use. It concludes this way, quote, "Kamala is for they, them. President Trump is for you," end quote. Well, as I started seeing these ads, I thought, damn, how is Kamala Harris going to respond to this? I mean, it's a perfectly valid thing to do. It's an honest thing to do. It's a proper thing to do. But how is she going to respond? Because Trump has turned this into some homophobic, that's Trump's way of thinking, some homophobic horror show to scare the shit out of the white boys out there with the backward wearing baseball hats. You know, oh my God, does that mean one of them women might turn out to have had a penis like Arnold Palmer? Oh, good God. Well, how about this? The Trump administration also has a record of providing services for transgender people in the federal prison system. What? That's right. Trump did this. What he's accusing Kamala Harris of doing. But this is the way a fascist prick works. He knows that his administration used to provide the same kind of services for transgender people who happen to be locked down in prisons. Now, the federal system houses thousands of undocumented immigrants awaiting trial or deportation. They haven't been found guilty of anything, but they're sitting in prison. And so that population of immigrants is the truth about that population is a lot more nuanced than this 30-second spot that this Trump filth has been running would suggest. Now, here's the deal, and this is according to the New York Times and other sources. Check this out. Trump appointees at the Bureau of Prisons. That's a division of the Justice Department. But Trump's appointees provided a whole bunch of gender-affirming treatments, including hormone therapy, for inmates who requested it during Trump's 4 years in office. What? What? Yeah. In a February 2018 budget memo to Congress, officials with the Bureau of Prisons wrote that under federal law, they were obligated to pay for a prisoner's surgery if it was deemed medically necessary. officials wrote this, quote, transgender offenders, people locked up having to be transgender, may require individual counseling and emotional support. Medical care may include pharmaceutical interventions like cross-gender hormone therapy, hair removal, and surgery if individualized assessment indicates surgical intervention is applicable. What? Yes. Now, that statement by Bureau of Prisons officials when they were presenting their budget to Congress partly reflected guidelines that officials in the Obama administration released shortly before they left office in January 2017. And the Obama administration guidelines were geared at ensuring, quote, transgender inmates can access programs and services that meet their needs, end quote. Now, this has been reported a couple of days ago by the New York Times. And the most significant change that the Orange Bastards administration made in those treatment guidelines after it took over was the addition of the word necessary, which created a higher but not insurmountable barrier to these federally funded surgeries. Trump was fully aware of it. I would assume, of course, that's an assumption on my part, that maybe I should just shit can because Trump's not aware of anything that doesn't directly relate to him. But this came out of his administration. And the New York Times asked for a request or a comment, sent a request for comment to another one of these Nazi freaks who's a senior advisor to the Trump campaign. This time they didn't go to Stephen Chung. They went to Brian Hughes. And in an email response to the Times request for comment, Brian said, quote, Kamala Harris has forcefully advocated for transgender inmates to be able to get transition surgeries. President Trump never has. End quote. Oh. Oh, okay. Well, that changes everything, doesn't it, you dumb little shit, Brian Hughes, huh? Now, the truth is that when this orange vomit was in office, his administration didn't consider the issue a big deal at the Bureau of Prisons. They were, at the time, in the middle of trying to put into place sentencing reforms, which would have made it much stricter and harsher sentencing penalties. And that process caused problems with the Justice Department's leaders. And that prompted the Prison Bureau director to leave in 2018. There was too much shit flying back and forth. The rational people working within these bureaus and divisions and departments, they just couldn't take it. So they said, fuck this. I'll go get a job working at a McDonald's before I'll do this. Well, I'm making that up, but Now, transgender inmates, I don't need to say this, but they are the most vulnerable people in the federal prison system. And they get significant protections under federal law. If it means isolation, if it means special parts of the prison where they're not going to be harassed and raped and brutalized by the real men. Court rulings have made sure those safeguards are in place and found that denying treatment, including gender-affirming surgery, violates the Eighth Amendment's prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment. That has been a decision by the court system. So what Kamala Harris did as vice president was to follow the law. Oh, my God. Now, the Orange Bastards appointees, his little Nazi cadre, his appointees to the Prison Bureau, did take some steps to reverse other policies related to transgender inmates. And the number if you're interested, the number of potential transgender inmates in this 150,000 person federal system, prisoners, estimated to be about 1,200, according to a court ruling in 2022. And that ruling paved the way for the first federal funded surgery. It was only in 2022 when this even happened at all in the federal prison system. Now, as the Times reports, Trump's appointees, these fascist fuckers, even during his last presidency, they rewrote the Prison Bureau's procedural manual to remove a provision that would have assigned housing on the basis of a person's gender identity rather than assigned sex at birth. Under the Obama-era guidance, transgender inmates had been allowed to use facilities, including bathrooms and cell blocks, that matched their self-identified gender. But to the Nazis, that's a reason to have people, killed. How many homosexuals were executed by the Hitler regime, by the Nazis, even though members of Hitler's high command were, don't misunderstand me, were obviously and proven closeted homosexuals who could only deal with their own homosexuality by poisoning and killing and burning alive other gay men. I mean, this is some sick shit. Trump is reaching, whether he knows it or not, it's because he's fucked up, but he's reaching into the id that exists in so many, if not all, people in general, but men especially, where it concerns sexually flavored issues. In so many instances, that monstrous id that Freud talked about, every single psychoanalyst has tried to help people deal with the id. That's what Jesus Christ was about, right? The rabbi from Nazareth, he was trying to help people deal with their id, that vicious fucking thing that exists inside human consciousness. But Trump, unlike Jesus of Nazareth, oh God, did you really say that? Trump likes to exploit that. He likes to reach in and grab of his bros, these dumb fucks who sit in the stands and applaud him and laugh and giggle and hoop and knee slap when he talks about Arnold Palmer's penis. And yet he can put political ads out blasting Kamala Harris for being sensitive to the issues that people face. Just because somebody goes to prison doesn't mean their humanity stops. In most instances, I would assume. I don't know about murderers and child rapists and people like that. I have no idea if they even have humanity. I would assume they do. Can I see the humanity in those people? No, but I'm not trained to. So when Kamala Harris, and acting as, the Vice President of the Biden administration, when she talks about these policies that have been in place in the Trump administration and the Biden administration, the orange bastard sees this as a perfect time to reach in again with his sharp stick and start stabbing at a person's id. Just stabbing. Look what she's doing. She's helping those men get their penises cut off. And turning them into vaginas. Oh my goodness. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. The Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.